Huh?
I didn't tell him.
Why?
Because, I mean, I was going to.
But you
I
didn't.
just didn't want him to stress about our trip.
Okay, is he stressing about it now? How do you think this makes him feel after the fact? That not only you made the bad financial decision to begin with, but that you hid it from him. And then on top of that, you're using him as an excuse to justify that poor decision.
I can go to Target and spend $600, and then I could take it all home and regret all of it,
Then return it.
but I don't.
There is exactly what I was talking about. If she really did regret it, she would bring it back. And she says, but I don't. You don't regret spending the money. What you regret, or what you're feeling guilty about, or what you're feeling bad about, is knowing that, man, I spent this $600. I wasn't supposed to. Now I'm going to have this uncomfortable conversation again that I don't like having. But I would prefer to have the conversation and keep the stuff than bring the stuff back and be like, hey, I made a mistake. I did my best to fix it. Let's continue to move forward in this thing. Hey, I'm Cisco. And as you can see here today, we're going to be going over the hit new series, Financial Audit by Caleb Hammer. And as you can see from the name of the channel, we deal with all things both related to money and mentality. And so this is a great place for us to come to view the very wide range of behaviors and thought processes that prevent most people in America from having financial success, both in the short term and the long term. So I hope to take a look at these things and kind of break them down in a way that might not happen on the show itself. So without wasting any more time, let's just get into the video.
And one of you has a secret that the other doesn't know, and I don't know what the secret is, or who has it, but one of you wants to tell it. And what is it? Who has the secret? Who's the little secreter? You're the secreter?
Yeah.
What's your little secret?
I mean, I just made another loan to cover a credit card so we could go on our trip.
Oh my. Okay.
Okay.
And I didn't tell
What do you
him.
mean? Wait, why doesn't he get to know that? Why are we doing that without his knowledge?
Oh.
He thought you were pulling from an emergency fund. Not that that's even better, but actually, no,
I
you
was
said the
gonna
trip
tell
was
him.
pre-planned.
I was going to tell him. I just.
Was, but you didn't, so I don't give it was. You didn't.
Oh, no, I didn't tell him.
Huh?
I didn't tell him.
Why?
Because, I mean, I was going to.
But you didn't.
Didn't want him to stress about our trip.
But now you're stressing about the trip, even though the trip is already done because you borrowed on it and now you have to pay it off.
See, I really wish Caleb would have pressed on that a little bit more, because a lot of people kind of have this viewpoint where it's like, well, I don't want to stress about it now, so I'm just going to kind of take this bad financial decision and I'm going to push it to the back of my brain for the time being, and then we'll worry about it later. But it's like, what you're saying is I want to just ignore the fact that I'm well aware that I've made a very poor financial decision, and I want to enjoy the poor financial decision that I made. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to defer it to my later self. That's really what's being said here, because there's no way you're saying you don't want to stress about it because, well, like Caleb said, you're stressing about it now. You're going to stress about it eventually. You just want the gratification. You're not willing to give up that gratification. Because surprisingly enough, what a lot of people underestimate is they underestimate other people's and even their own ability to withstand various amounts of pain for just a little bit of pleasure, for just like a brief moment of pleasure. You would honestly be surprised at the massive amount of things that people would give up in order to just feel good for a very short period of time. I mean, you see it with moments like this vacation, you see it with car loans. I mean, pretty much any kind of emotional impulse spending. This is one of the various but very common rationales that people kind of come to make these bad decisions. So much so that she even hid it from her husband. And it took them coming on this show for her to actually say anything. So if I were Caleb in this instance, I would have liked to have asked her, well, are you stressing about it now? Are you stressed about the trip now? I mean, it looks like she's not so much stressed about it. I would want to ask just to make sure, just to give her that chance. And then what I would ask her after that is, okay, is he stressing about it now? How do you think this makes him feel after the fact? That not only you made the bad financial decision to begin with, but that you hid it from him. And then on top of that, you're using him as an excuse to justify that poor decision. Because now you're making a mess and you're involuntarily dragging him into it. So I would have really liked to have seen and heard what her response to that would have been. But unfortunately, Caleb kind of just skips right on over it, which understandable.
Because you borrowed on it and now you have to pay it off. You borrowed, you opened it, you took out a loan. What kind of loan?
Uplift?
Okay.
No, Upstart was the loan I took for the
Upstart.
card. Upstart, yeah. I took that out to pay off a credit card that was maxed out so that we could have spending on the card.
Oh my.
That has
are you
nothing to
talking
do
about?
with that has nothing to do with the vacation.
Well, then what are you talking about? Because that just contradicted your whole thing. I'm confused too. What are you saying?
So yeah, we did finance the vacation that we just took.
From what? On what?
It's like the pre-planned, like a firm, like one of those. It's called Uplift.
So Uplift
took a
and
loan
Okay, see, and it looks like he doesn't even know about this other thing. So this kind of leads me to believe like her I was going to tell him mentality is like a lot of people do this. They'll say I'm going to tell them, but they never actually do. And they're not necessarily lying, because in their head it's like, oh well, I'll tell him. And they keep telling themselves that. I'll tell him, and they keep deferring it and deferring it and deferring it. And then eventually it gets found out, or they get put in a situation like so where they're forced to say something. But yeah, there's more than likely a lot of other things that have gone on that she ain't told them. And I doubt we'll get to everything in just this one episode of Financial Audit. Not even this episode of what I'm doing here, because we're not doing the whole episode. But I'm sure there are things that didn't even happen on this show that she's done he doesn't know about, that he might never know about, unfortunately. And this is a very common thing in marriages, as sad as it is to say. Finances is like top 3 reasons that people get divorced. I think the number 1 reason is something about lifestyle differences, but even within those lifestyle differences, finances usually has something to do with that. So it could be higher than 3. It definitely could, in actuality, be higher than 3 if people went and thoroughly explained what their problems were. I'd be willing to bet more of it drew back. But anyways, let's move on. Let's move on to the next thing.
So why are we doing them? Wait, what are we doing then? Why
I
are
just
you?
plan it,
I don't
and
agree
he
with
just
them.
goes on them. He doesn't.
I don't agree with a lot of them.
Why are we doing them then?
And we just do
Because
it.
I like to travel.
Cool, but if he disagrees, why do you win? Win.
Maybe because I'm controlling. I don't know. He just does whatever. Like if I have a trip, he just packs his bag and he's like, okay, where we're going? Like when we get to the airport, like he doesn't know anything about the travel or the expenses. He just
And you're
goes.
saying you don't like that?
I don't prefer. I'd like to be at least consulted. Like, hey, let's take a trip. Okay.
Do you guys
let's
have
plan this out.
conversations about this, or is this the first time? Like, what are we doing?
We've had this conversation multiple times.
Why has nothing ever been addressed then?
I feel like I could be sitting on that side with you, talking to her about a lot of these financial issues.
Well, I'm
or
not the
things.
only problem.
Oh, I've
I
never
am
said.
saying I'm a huge problem, but I'm saying I'm not the only problem.
I've never said I wasn't any problem. But I'm also, when we say pulling out of the emergency fund for things, I'm not the one that's pulling out for things. She's the one normally pulling out the emergency fund. So,
I mean, I do have a spending problem. I know I do.
Okay, we're going to talk about that last thing she just said, but first, Caleb asked, so do we have conversations about this? And he says, we have conversations all the time. And he asked, well, why have we not done anything about it? And then he didn't answer the question. Like, why has there been no resolution to this problem? Like she just said, clearly she has a problem. You're her husband, you're her spouse, and yet we're not doing anything to work with her to fix it. Like, there has to be some means of solution here. You guys have had this conversation over and over and over again. but the problem still persists. So that means that you should have an ascending scale of solutions where, like, you know, we have the conversation. Conversation didn't work. Okay, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make a budget. A budget doesn't work. We have another conversation. And out of that conversation comes another solution. And that doesn't work. Okay, well, now we have another conversation and we have another solution. And that's how those things should progress. You don't just have conversation after conversation and talk and talk and talk and nothing ever gets done. Something has to get done. Otherwise, all this talking is useless. And clearly it is, because she keeps doing it and you keep allowing her to do it. Let's play this a little further before she talks about what she just said about having the problem.
Like, I know I'm out of control with spending.
I'm confused. We talked about, before we started filming, you found this show through George Camel. You found George through Dave. You've been through a live event with Dave. You know he'd be against all of this dramatically. You've been on that path of relative being surrounded by the knowledge of how to not be a dump for money, and yet we are in
Still doing it.
so like what you obviously just don't care. The vacation's more important than any financial stability or any fixing or any change of behavior, right? It has
Yes,
to be.
Yeah.
it's got to be yes, because this is a daily watching financial videos and doing all this.
Okay, all right. So again, Caleb really nailed it here. She doesn't care. She doesn't care. What ends up happening is a lot of people do this. Once you get past the stage of making excuses, of course it's good to then acknowledge, okay, I have an issue. But because we continually haven't made the next step from I have an issue to let's fix it, we haven't bridged those 2 points. For people who are stuck in that stage, oftentimes what this is, them saying I have a problem, it's something that they do within themselves to help relieve some of the guilt. So what will happen is a conversation will be had and they'll make concessions like, yeah, I know this is a big problem. I know it needs to be fixed. I'm very sorry that this problem is hurting you and it's hurting the both of us. And I want to do better. And what that does is it helps them to feel less guilty about what's going on. And it helps them to kind of get past the conversational stage. Because the conversation keeps happening and the conversation will start and it will end faster if I make these concessions, as opposed to continuing to argue back and make excuses and fight back and forth and all these other things that are generally unproductive in having a conversation. But because she hasn't been forced to move past just the concession stage, she hasn't been forced to make a change, she's not going to. She's just going to continue making these concessions, and she within herself will feel better about making the concessions and continuing the problem, because I mean, why would she change if her childlike behavior is being enabled? Because that's what this is. When it comes to things like this, you really can't expect adults to act like anything more than big children. This is pure childlike behavior, right? I did the thing, I got away with it, I'm going to continue doing the thing. And I will do whatever I have to make doing the thing easier on you, and well, not on you, make it easier on me. So it's a very surface level admission that comes off to her like, yeah, I'm acknowledging something, but it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything at all.
On
Why
hers,
watch without any action? I'm confused.
we might have action for half of the month, and the other half is let's go do whatever we want.
Get a little fire into your butt for a moment,
And then
you're done.
Yep.
Why do you think it falls off?
Because I impulse buy and I regret it after. I can go to Target and spend $600 and then I can take it all home and regret all of it,
Then return it.
but I don't.
Okay.
So then I just am negative $600 for going to Target.
Oh, you see, there is exactly what I was talking about. It's an admission but it doesn't mean anything, because if she really did regret it, she would bring it back. And she says, but I don't. Then in that case, I would have liked if he asked, why don't you bring it back? Or if he really wanted to press her, he would say, then you don't regret it. You don't regret spending the money. What you regret, or what you're feeling guilty about, or what you're feeling bad about, is knowing that, man, I spent this $600. I wasn't supposed to. Now I'm gonna have to have this uncomfortable conversation again that I don't like having. But I would prefer to have the conversation and keep the stuff than bring the stuff back and be like, hey, I made a mistake. I did my best to fix it. Let's continue to move forward in this thing. That's not what she does. She buys it, she keeps it, and then, oh, horrible conversation now. Makes me feel so bad about myself and my decisions, but I'm not willing to change. Doesn't mean a single thing. Not at all.
You
My
know?
spending is out of control.
Absolutely, but you know this. You acknowledge this.
But I don't change it.
I know, and I'm asking why. Why have you done nothing? Why have you put no action behind this? I need to know. At least your own self-assessment.
I need to know as well.
I mean,
because
I've done charts, like no spending charts on the fridge. I've put them up. I've done like ringlets of our debt, like little paper rings,
we've done all
and
the
hung it
all
up
the
like
stupid little
as
things.
decoration in our
It doesn't
house.
work.
I just don't follow through.
You said it really well earlier. She'll have fire for a while, and then
Okay. So it looks like they actually have gone through and they've made some amount of effort after having a conversation to fix things. And it sounds like they've tried a lot of different solutions. However, if what you're doing isn't working, you have to escalate. You have to escalate. The more childlike behavior that you continue to express, then the more I have to treat you like a child. And I don't want to sound mean, I don't want to sound harsh, but the truth of the matter is just, I mean, that is the truth of the matter, right? So if we try doing things where we, kind of work together as a team, and I'm trying to respect your autonomy as a grown adult who is able to manage their own finances, and that doesn't work, then now we have to start putting boundaries, limitations on the finances. And I don't mean like conceptual boundaries, I mean actual literal boundary. Like, okay, so you get to keep one credit card, the rest have to go, or you're only allowed to spend X amount of dollars, right? And then they go over that amount. Well, now we're going to call up, or we're going to go on our app, and we are going to enforce restrictions on how much money you can spend on this card. And if you want, you can try giving them an emergency card that doesn't have that limit in case something goes horribly wrong. And if they show that they're not capable of keeping the emergency card as just the emergency card, and they spend on that one past their limits too, then you take that one away. And you just got to say, if there's something goes wrong, call me. And if things continue to go bad, then you make those restrictions smaller and smaller and smaller until they've boxed themselves into a corner and they have no choice, but to stop engaging in this problem that they have. Because the sad reality is that most people have zero discipline whatsoever. In most things, most people don't have discipline. What happens is they get placed into particular circumstances where their behavior has to develop in a certain way, and they're not given the freedom to engage in a behavior like this. What do I mean by that? You have to pay your bills, so you have to go to work. If you didn't have to pay your bills, you probably wouldn't go to work. However, you'd be giving up on all the benefits that you would get from going to work that aren't necessarily about your obligations, right? So you'd be giving up on your retirement plan. You'd be giving up on a lot of the a lot of the benefits that would come from continuing to engage in this not so pleasant activity for the sake of, again, this instant gratification. What a lot of people don't understand about discipline is that it's a muscle. You're having such a hard time exercising this discipline because you don't exercise your discipline. Does that make sense? So you've gone your whole life spending money. Or you spent your whole life not being able to spend money, and now you have money and you don't know what to do with it. It's either one of those two scenarios. You don't come from a background of prudence and discipline, and then just all of a sudden switch flips, and now all your discipline goes out the window. No, you didn't exercise in this horrible behavior because either you couldn't, or you exercise this horrible behavior because it's what you've done your whole life, and you are enabled to do so. So you don't come in situations like that, and then boom, now all of a sudden, I'm in a position where I have to exercise discipline, so now I get to do it. If you've never been to the gym a day in your life and you stay at home, lazy, no physical activity, eating however you want, sitting on your chair all day, laying in bed all day, and all of a sudden you have to go take your car, put it in neutral, and you have to push it to the other side of the street, you're not going to be able to do that. All of a sudden you want to go into the gym and try to deadlift 400 pounds, bench press 200 pounds, you're not going to be able to do that because you didn't train, you didn't exercise your muscles. You didn't work them out. You didn't build them up. Discipline works the exact same way. So because you didn't exercise discipline, you didn't exercise that muscle, you didn't build up your ability to use that muscle to resist your urges and do what it is that you have to do the way you need to do it, you're never going to be able to just do it right away. Number one, you need to be given a plan. Number one, you need a goal, right? This is our common goal. Here's how we're going to get to it. And here's what we have to do to make these things happen. This is the extent that we'll go. And then if things continue to work, then you continue to do those things. If those things don't work, then you adjust the plan. You adjust the plan and you adjust the means of which you'll use to get there. One of those two. In this case, the means that they need to use to get to this budget of them actually properly managing their money, well, there are a lot of things. But for her in particular, it looks like she needs to be given not a choice. She needs to not be given a choice. She needs to be given this card with a $200 spending limit for the week and say, there you go, make that work. This one's for groceries. This one is for whatever kind of luxuries you want to enjoy, I suppose. $800 a month sounds like a lot, but it's far less than what it is she's doing now. If I was being nice, I'd probably give her $800 a month. In reality, I would think this needs to be cut much shorter. He makes a good living from what it sounds like, but this problem needs to be absolutely squashed. Like, it needs to be stepped on, it needs to be balled up, it needs to be put into a garbage can, sent to the nearest abandoned island, and then nuked out of existence. Because this problem is terrible. It is absolutely terrible. Spending $12,000 in a month where you only made 7 or 8. Yeah, it's not uncommon, but it is a big issue. Not uncommon in America, at least. Good Lord. Good Lord.
It's on to the next thing. On to the next fad, or on to the next, let's do this or that. And for my side, I look at a lot of, okay, are our bills paid? Are we have a roof over our head? Are we fed? Are our kids safe? Are we safe? Okay, whatever's left after that, I'll automatically put stuff into savings that we don't touch. But after
What?
that, I kind of...
You put money into savings? You don't put any money into savings. He does not put any money into savings.
Into our 401k every paycheck.
I don't consider that savings.
But you
How is that
guys
not
are taking
considered
loans
savings?
against your retirement.
Okay. Her saying that is very funny. She doesn't consider the 401k savings. You wanna know why she doesn't consider that putting money into savings? It's because she doesn't have access to it. It's because she can't touch it. She can't touch it, so it's not savings. It's not real. Because she doesn't have access to the money that he's putting away, it doesn't exist. He's not actually doing anything substantial with it. Not in her mind. Oh my gosh. That's funny. No, that's actually really funny. Wow. I don't know where you find these people, Caleb, but these are some interesting people you got on. Y'all got some... This is good content. This is very good content. Okay.
signal to it and just go do it. And normally I'm like, okay, fine. It's normally like when I'm busy or I've got a lot going on, I just go, okay, cool. And then after the fact, when I look at our bank account, I go, well, what the hell happened? I didn't know it was this much. Why do we do that? Well, no, and I can't take it back. They can't go in there and pull it out and give the money back. So what are you gonna do? A lot of it is after the fact. I will not lecture, but we'll talk about why we did this and what went wrong.
Well, you can normally just give me a slap on the wrist, and then we just go about our spending.
Who typed that? Oh, you're trying to keep them young.
That's right. I try to get him to do Botox too. He won't do it.
No, I will not ever. I'm not. It's a waste of money.
I'd be willing to do it in the armpits to prevent, because I sweat a lot.
Same, but again, that's.
I don't know.
I'd rather spend the money on something else than.
See, here's the thing. Like you can't keep giving her that look and keep making these passive aggressive comments when you're the biggest enabler to her problem, right? Like, sir, this is your wife. This is your wife, and you can't come online on this show. I understand you feel vindicated to some extent because everything you've been saying is like, oh man, look how right I am. Look how right I've been. All these things that I said to you, now someone else is saying to you. And man, I feel so good because I was right. But it's like, how are you gonna dog her out in front of hundreds of thousands of people on something you said when it wasn't something you did? You didn't follow through on anything that you said. You didn't go through what you should have to help enable her to make the right decision. You just, not only did you not do that, you didn't even stop enabling her bad decisions. You enabled those bad decisions. It's like, oh, okay, well, why did we do XYZ thing? We shouldn't have done it. Well, here you go. Here's the card. Do it anyway. There was no like, okay, we're not going on vacations anymore. I know it's hard, if you're at work and she needs to go shopping, it's hard to be like, okay, well, don't spend money on XYZ thing. Because clearly she's done it anyway. Fine. Well, then you need to, on the things you can control, you should have been looking to control those things. Like the vacation is an easy no. You say, oh, well, I want to go traveling. I want to go on vacation. You know how important that is to me. Okay, well, if it was that important to you, you wouldn't be spending all of our extra money on A, B, C, D, E, F, G, on the whole rest of the alphabet. You spent our vacation money. You spent it. So there's no vacation. You didn't do that. Let alone the solution I gave earlier about limiting the card. So regardless of how vindicated you feel because of what you've been saying, if you didn't help her come to the place where she should be, because that's not your friend, that's not your girlfriend, this isn't, it's not even your sister or your cousin. This is your wife. This is your wife, the one you made vows to spend the rest of your life with. Yeah. So if you didn't fulfill your responsibility, then you cannot come online here saying all these things about her accountability when you also have no accountability. You're not just two separate people anymore. Even looking at things from a purely transactional standpoint of a business, a single entity cannot operate unless all the departments of the business operate together as one function, for one goal, under one system, with one mind. That is how a successful business operates. And this is much more intimate than just a business. So, I think this is going on for long enough. We're not going to do the rest of the episode. Just this alone was a lot. There was a lot here. So let me guys know if you want me to continue doing this sort of thing. Thanks for watching. Go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, follow, comment with any questions, concerns, recommendations, and stay tuned. We'll be here to help you get into your money mentality.